Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of Beyond the Finish Line with the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Today, we have none other than my friend, Jason Bahamundi. Jason is an ultra runner, a triathlete, founder of Red Mag and the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Jason also co-hosts Fiery Side Chats, Fiery Embers with our friend Om Gandhi, Food Fight Friday with Adam Lee. And Jason is someone I personally look up to, and he's just an overall rad guy. I'm so excited to sit down with Jason for this chat. It's been a long time coming. And also, friends of the pod, feel free to submit comments or questions for Jason. We will get those throughout the podcast. And also, if you're digging the pod, please head to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Rate, review, subscribe, share. There's a great community of podcasters with even better hosts and tons of content coming at you. And we can't do this without you. So without further ado, let's bring Jason forward and let's have this great chat.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me on your show, man. Good to see you again.
Thanks for being here. I've been really looking forward to this. Ever since I had this opportunity, I wanted to talk to you and Om. So it's like my cup is runneth over in the best possible way this week. So this is great. So I'm really stoked to have you here. And like I like to do, let's just get down to nitty gritty. You do a lot of stuff. You wear a ton of hats, like a lot of hats. And then, so just tell us about Jason. Let's hear it.
Actually, I only wear one hat. And it's usually the one on my head, to be honest with you.
Metaphorical hats.
Oh man. So I guess the way I would talk about myself is I'm a Puerto Rican kid born in the Bronx, and endurance sports were not a thing that was ever in my mind, was never a dream or a goal. Growing up in the Bronx, we played baseball and basketball. When we moved to the suburbs, I played football. I would watch the kids running track and think, why? Why are you running? That sounds and looks awful. And so running just wasn't a thing, right? And as I got older, I got introduced to endurance sports, and we can talk about that more. And one thing leads to another, and you go from training for a half marathon to 50 milers, 100 milers, 250 milers. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, what's the sport of triathlon? Let's get involved in that. And I guess you would use the phrase graduate from sprint and Olympics to half Ironman and Ironman distance events. And I would say that I found a renewed love of sport in endurance sports. And for me, I love long course endurance sports. So in other words, 50 milers up to and up, and then half Ironman and Ironman. I've always described myself as more of a candle than a match. And so those 5K distances and those sprint triathlons, kudos to those athletes doing them. They're not for me. They hurt way too much. And I know it sounds dumb, right? And opposite to think, oh, somebody would prefer to run 100 miles than 3 miles at a 5K. But man, if you're not going 60 miles an hour on step one at a 5K, it's awful. It's painful. And with a 100 miler, shoot, you could take a nap. And you're eating buffet food all along the way too. So how can you argue with that?
So what do you think it is about those longer events that really speak to you? What actually draws you to those, you think?
It's the opportunity to prove to myself that I can. I was on Lisa DeLugo's podcast called Ella Go, and she probed me really, really well about my why. And one of my whys is to prove to myself and to others that I can do things. I'm a super competitive person, and being able to compete at those long races to prove to myself that I can is the thing that I love. So if I'm training for a 100-mile race or an Ironman distance triathlon, you're going to run 3 miles, right? You're going to do that within training. And so now I have the opportunity to go and prove that I can do more than what I did in training. And I think that's a part of what grips me is the challenge, the risk of going out there and pushing your limits, knowing that you don't know if you're going to finish an event, right? Like, that's hard. It's hard to put yourself in that position to think to yourself, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Let's go for it anyway. And so I think that's what I love about those long course events.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. There's something about like that long burn. I think it really teaches you something about who you are, and you probably have to really dig deep for your why too. I mean, at that point, you had nothing but time to think, so you really have to be kind of keyed in with that for sure.
You're probably
So yeah,
cycling through a different whys along the way.
yeah, yeah. I bet that develops a lot during some of those events, of course. But yeah, you said you would unpack a little bit more about your endurance sports history. Go into that, like your Ironmans and ultras, and kind of how that played out.
Yeah, so it all started in 2007. I was approached by my ex-wife at now ex-wife, and she said, "Hey, we have to participate in this Westchester Half Marathon." And my response was, "Who's this we? You got a mouse in your pocket? Like, I'm not running for a second, let alone 13 miles." Um, but anyway, I got into it, and I recall this. And Omen and I have very similar stories. I went to a track and I ran 400 meters, a quarter of a mile, and man, my heart was beating hard. My lungs were on fire. But I walked a quarter mile, ran another quarter mile, walked another quarter mile, went home. And I thought, I'm on top of the world. Look at me. I just did a mile. And that kind of just progressed from one thing into another. And I found camaraderie as I was working with the team and training folks with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And it was really cool. And then I was living in Dallas, and I was playing co-ed softball at the time. And a couple of teammates approached me and said, "Hey, we're going to do this triathlon. If you're interested, join us." I had no idea what a triathlon was. I was like, "But yeah, let's try it. Why not?" It involves running, and I had already done that part. So just registered, and lo and behold, they didn't actually register for the event, but I did. And I showed up on race day and got myself in the pool and got out on the bike and out for the run. And I will tell you this, Joe, when I was in the water, I had to walk in the pool. Thankfully, it was a pool swim. And I walked in the pool, and people were yelling at me that I might get disqualified for walking. And I will be honest with you, my reaction was, good, then I can fucking stop and go home because this sucks. And, I got out of the water and I got on a bike, and it was like a brand new person, like being on a bike, riding hard, wind in your face. It was amazing. Like, I just loved it. And so I kind of fell in love with the sport of triathlon, and one thing just led to another. And before I know it, I'm racing half Ironman distance events and got involved in Ironman distance events. And going long there was cool, but it wasn't enough. And got involved in ultra running, starting with the 50 miler and then progressing to the 100 miler event. And it's been crazy to think about. Like I said, Puerto Rican kid growing up in the Bronx, like tell that 12-year-old kid he's going to go run in the woods for 24 hours. He'd have been like, yeah, not a chance. Or you're going to ride a bike for 112 miles. I'd be like, nope, not doing that either.
It's amazing. Something I think about a lot is like the first time. So could you put like a pin in the day you actually stepped foot on trail, and like, do you actually remember what that was like the first time you realized how much you loved it?
I don't remember the day, but I can tell you this story. Friends of mine sent me an email, and they said, "Hey," or a text message said, "Hey, we're going to do this 100 miler up in the Pacific Northwest." And I was like, "Well, have fun with that." And that race actually ended up getting canceled. And they said, "Hey, we're going to do this 50 miler here." I was living in Dallas at the time, which was the Rocky Raccoon 50 in Huntsville. And I just thought, oh, I could run 50 miles. That's cool. I could do that. It'll be fun, type of thing. It was, best guess was like 12 hours. I had already done Ironman events, which would take me 12 hours. So I just made the comparison. Okay, 12 hours, I can be active. And I started training for this thing, and being out in the woods and running free from the world, I would say, right? No technology, nothing around me, just me and nature. And it was absolutely amazing. And I just remember how much fun I was having out there. Different sights, different sounds, just everything was different. Every one of my senses was alive, and it was amazing to be out on the trails. And man, and that just led from that 50 miler to I got a funny story about my first 100 miler, but surprisingly enough, even after that first 100 miler, which was a total shit show, I managed to finish 7 more 100 milers along the way. But that first one was awful, dude. It was so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about the first time that I actually hit trail, and just remember, I had the same feeling, just like, wow, like you just like break the chain, not to obviously dog on like road running. It's a huge part of my training regimen, but it's just like the first time I realized that, wow, you can actually run out here too. Like, so yeah, it's just so freeing. It's just like, whoa. Like, of course, the first time I went, I didn't know anything about like walking the uphills, and I just like bombed everything. So, and it turned out awful, but obviously I keep going back. Um, so that brings me to another question that I just kind of had. What do you think keep bringing you back to these events?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because of that very first 100 miler, which was terrible, but the experience of being out there with nature is the thing that brings me back. And I think the other part is we are surrounded by technology constantly. We're being bombarded with information. We're being bombarded with messages, with email and newsletters and text messages, and it's just always on. But when I go out on the trail, there's nothing. Like, I throw my phone in my hydration vest, and I almost never take it out. It's just me and nature. And I think that is a huge part of why I love being out on the trails as much as I do. And the other part is, if I run a 3 mile loop around my neighborhood, I pretty much know everything that's going to transpire within those 3 miles, right? But you go for a 3 mile run out on the trail, and every single time it feels different. You might be strong on the uphill on one day, and then just total dog shit on the uphill the next day that you go out there. And it just changes constantly for you. And I think that's a huge piece of it. And then lastly, I will say this. I think the fitness that you gain from running on trails is almost second to none. I coach athletes, triathletes, and I always ask them, if there's trails nearby, let's go out there, because you're going to be running in so many different planes of motion that it's going to work your core. And I think about fitness and just getting, in better shape, and trail running allows me to do that in a very enjoyable manner too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Overall fitness is just like mental health, right? It's just like amazing what it'll do for just like your outlook on life, just a little bit of time in the sun and in nature. Yeah, I love that. I'd like to
How
talk
do
about
you
run
keep
try
going out
mag.
there? Let me ask
Oh,
you that.
well, I
I'm
like
going to
it.
reverse the tables. What are you
Yeah,
going out
yeah.
there?
All right, I like a question coming at me. Well, my why keeps changing too. It's like ever evolving, right? At, like running was just a thing for fitness, obviously starting out, and then it was, I started feeling good. It was a way to like kind of shake some mental health struggles I've had in my life. I'm transparent about it. I've had substance abuse problems my whole life. I mean, yeah, uh, almost 5 years free of that, and now it's become so, it's involved into this like community that I'm building and meeting, and I've almost got like a trail family now. So it's weird. It started out as a way of breaking free of struggles. Now I'm learning about myself. I'm learning what I'm made of, what I can do, and then now I'm like building almost like a life around it. And I love every second of it, man. Like I don't regret the day that I laced up shoes and stepped foot on the East Side Eagle Creek Red Loop Trail. It's been a wild ride since then. I think that's what keeps me coming back now.
Yeah,
It
I think the one thing that we didn't touch on, and maybe you have these questions lined up, is you and I have a lot of parallels when it comes to this stuff. So I stopped drinking alcohol about 12 years ago, I think. And right around that same time, I also went more plant-based. And I know you're a plant-based athlete as well, who has quit drinking as well, and is on a sobriety journey as well. And I think when you go through trauma like that, in terms of sobriety and getting out of that cycle that's not so good, I think you start to learn more about yourself, and then you start to appreciate the things that are around you. And getting out in nature, the sounds are crisper, the sights are clearer, the feeling out there is second to none, and I think that's a huge part of it. And I will also add this, like, again, because I'm a triathlete as well. Like, when I'm in the water today versus 12, 13 years ago, it's different. I feel better in the water. Same thing on the bike. And it also, to that point, like, I'm away from technology, away from the inundation of text messages and stuff like that. It's just me and the road, or me and the water. And I think when you go through a sobriety journey, or you're in the midst of a sobriety journey, I guess, because you never go through it, you're always on it. Life just, I don't know, seems more crystal clear and enjoyable, I guess, is the best word I could come up with right now. And so I think you understand that, and those that are listening or watching as well, who have been or are on a sobriety journey, understand that simultaneously.
Yeah. And you just made me think about something that maybe I didn't think about before. And like another reason why I almost noticed, like the more time I spend outside and the more time I like celebrate like movement of my body, it's just like I have like a different perspective of actually who I am and like kind of what I've been through. And I always kind of think like, I survived all of this, anything else that I do, I'm like or pushing a distance, I can absolutely make it through that. And that just came to me just now in that conversation. But yeah, I love what you said there. It's like you're kind of celebrating movement and life. And I got to get in the water, I guess. Between talking with you and a few other people, I'm just like, all right, like I'm already on the bike a lot. I love running. So it's just one more step. I just need one more nudge. So yeah.
Here's the thing, I wrote an article about this on our website, and I talked to Liz Myers yesterday, who is the host of the Tribe of Running podcast. People tend to want to define themselves in categories, right? I'm an ultra runner, I'm a marathoner, a triathlete, I'm an Ironman triathlete. I just come out and tell you I'm an endurance athlete, because swimming helps my cycling and running. Cycling helps my swimming and running. Running helps my swimming and cycling. Like, they all work together to develop fitness, right? Your body doesn't go, well, you swam today, so your VO2 max for swimming is good, but your running didn't change. Like, your body doesn't know that, right? And so the more things that you can do to become a better athlete, the better you will be at the thing that you love the most. So go and get yourself in the water, go to the gym and lift weights, get yourself on a bike, go rock climbing, go hiking, go kayaking, like whatever it is, do other things, because it's going to make you a better athlete overall, which will make you better at the thing that you love the most.
Yeah, I agree with that. It gives you more resiliency, mental resiliency, physical resiliency. I started throwing in rock climbing randomly out of nowhere, but that's actually kind of fun. But yeah, certainly. Well, Jason, I want to get into run, try, bike. It's why we're here, right? Why we're here talking is because, yeah, and it may be for myself about the founding of Run, Try, Bike. Where did this come from? Tell me all the details here.
We're about 2 months away from the 4-year anniversary of this idea of Run, Try, Bike. And it's fucking crazy to think about. Like, 4 years since the idea came about blows me away. So it was September of 2020. I was working for a company called Travel Host at the time. And as you can imagine, with the word travel in your company name and the pandemic, it's not good. And my mentor, Bill Schroeder, at the time had to make hard decisions. And he got rid of essentially everybody in the company except for myself and the general manager, Al Schoenberg. And we were sitting in his office one day, and we had beautiful offices. This was in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Irving, Texas, overlooking the lake, floor to ceiling glass windows, like everything you can imagine corporate America to be, right? And he sits us down and he's like, look, if you're in for it, I'm in for it. Let's just go be 3 pirates on a pirate ship with no destination. Who the hell knows where the wind is going to blow? And we'll just figure it out along the way. And we signed up, and it was a blast. We were just out there figuring it out, like no rules. Let's just have fun again, right? And kudos to Bill. He got a phone call one day because he's a serial entrepreneur, and he handed me the phone and he said, this is a phone call for you. The company, Texas Runner and Triathlete Magazine, was looking to sell their business. The widow, unfortunately, her husband had passed, and he was the person who took care of the business. And so she had no interest in running it, and she was looking to sell it. And we had a couple of conversations, and we were really far apart in her asking price and what her assets were. But after the second call, I hung up the phone and I looked at Bill and I said, I don't need to buy a company. I can do this on my own. It was as if lightning struck me with this inspiration and epiphany. And I called a handful of freelance writers that I knew from my blogging days way back when. And I asked them, what would a new publication need to do to be successful in the space that's out there today? And they said, if you talk 2 with and 4 beginner athletes, you got a shot. And I thought, that's cool, but I want to do more. Like, beginner athletes is one segment. There's a lot of other people out there. And so I made it a mission to want to talk to more women, more people of color, LGBTQIA plus athletes, as well as those that have physical challenges, both visible and invisible physical challenges. And so I launched the company right then and there with this idea that we were going to tell stories of everyday athletes, overcoming obstacles, getting to their finish line, DNFing, like put it all out there. Let's all be vulnerable and share these stories together. Because when I was training for Ironman distance events, we'd go for a 100-mile bike ride, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. You talk about everything. And after that ride, you'd go out and have food with each other and you'd talk about everything. And I was like, well, why aren't we doing this as a business? 30 years in marketing and advertising, I figured I could sell advertising space. And so I launched the business. And in the last year, so that became an official company in January of 2021. So in the last 3.5 years, what you have seen is a company go from actually printing a physical magazine and mailing it out across the country and selling them to races, to producing a digital magazine that comes out exclusively through our newsletter. We have our website. We, 2 years ago, Om and I were chatting and we came up with this idea for live interview shows, which we're on right now. And then we decided we would take those live interview shows and post them on YouTube and create podcasts out of it. And then about 6 months ago, Om and I were talking and I called a couple of our advertisers and I said to them, would it make sense for us to have podcasts under our umbrella, since you are advertising with us, you trust us, you know that we're going to bring the right hosts on and have the right shows. And they all said yes. And then I called a couple of podcasters and they said, well, if you're able to get advertisers for us, I'd be happy to be under your umbrella, because now I can literally do the thing I love doing, which is talking to people while you guys produce the show, promote the show, and get advertisers for me. Sign me up. And so the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network was born, and we officially launched it June 25th. So what is that, 16 days ago? And it's been a resounding success. You sent me a text message earlier today that a listener shared with you, just uber positive vibes. We have gotten tons of great feedback from our audience. We've gotten great testimonials from our readers as well. And it's just been this thing that has sort of blossomed right before my eyes and is more than likely not the thing I thought we were going to be, in all honesty. I thought we would be a print-driven platform with a website. Instead, we're more of a storytelling platform that happens to have a magazine, that happens to have a website, that happens to use social media to share these stories. And it's crazy and it's awesome. That's not to say it doesn't go without anxiety. Like our newsletter is coming out on the 15th. It's our next magazine. I'm stressing out. But man, it's been a wild ride. And the best part is we've been able to share so many stories of so many different athletes. You and Danny Contreras and Oscar Gonzalez, to name a few, Mike DiGiovanni, talking about their sobriety journey. We talked to Robert Rodriguez on Tuesday, who is a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, nonetheless. Shout out to the Boricuas in the BX that I didn't know actually existed and did these sports. But he's an amputee, so he has a prosthetic leg. But we've also talked with Melissa Stockwell. Kristen Jenny interviewed Amy Dixon, who is a Paralympian herself. We've talked to Rach McBride and shared their story about being a non-binary athlete at the elite level. It's just been unreal. Yvonne Spencer and Morgan Latimer, who are African-American athletes, Black athletes in triathlon, and being able to share their story. Like the thing that I thought we were going to get and have and do has just blossomed into being even more than what I really thought it could be. And being able to have these people out there is just phenomenal, and that they trust us. They trust us to share their story, to the point where they're now coming to us and saying, hey, can I be on your show? I'd love to chat with you to get a story on the website. And I apologize for taking up all this time, but my goodness, it's been amazing to be on this dynamic role, and to have the advertisers that we do that support us, Blue 70 and Topo Athletic and SBR Sports and Catula. For the most part, I've been there from day one. Lecky recently joined us again, and they're on board. And we have a bunch of different prospects in the pipeline to hopefully bring on board and bring their great products and services to our audience. Because honestly, we're the premier voice of the everyday athlete, and there's nobody else like us out there.
100% that last statement. Sharing my story with Run Try Bike has been a huge stepping stone. Not just in me being able to like share my voice, and my story, but it's also helped me along with my sobriety journey, and being able to, it's given me a platform to be I'm very vulnerable in some of my articles that I write, and being able to provide that for so many people now that have shared their story on there, it's huge. So just, I guess that's more of just not a question, but kind of a shout out to Run Try Bike and the community they're building. And even since I've kind of been around, how much it's grown, and the people I've met through Run Try Bike is huge. Like I bet 75% of people I talk to on a weekly basis is someone I've met through the platform, or someone we've talked to, or so it's just I guess all that was just a shout out, man. Like this is awesome. I'm super stoked to be here. It's still a little while that I get this opportunity, and it's it's surreal. So yeah, thank you for sharing that all that.
Text me your mailing address so I can send you the check for the shout out.
I'm just so proud. I'm just so happy to be here for this, and it's just amazing. I love what's happening.
So our guy Om Gandhi is watching us on LinkedIn, and he put up the words that nobody ever wants to read. It says Team Pineapple. I'm gonna have to remove him from the payroll.
Well, we're gonna get there, of course. So I do have a question in regards to all that you just shared. If you what do you think you've learned about yourself, or about like other people, maybe in the pursuit of endurance sports, and then also talking to all these amazing athletes? Like if you had a couple things like distill down, like what have you learned over your time talking to all these fantastic people?
So our boy John Gray, pretty neat performance on YouTube. Team Pineapple. What's happening here? I'm gonna have to start blocking all these people now.
I promise, pineapple's coming.
Here's what I would answer your question with, Joe. We can do more than we believe we can, right? We limit ourselves so much. I was on Threads earlier today, exchanging threads with Oregon Dad. And one of the things we started talking about was taking risks and betting on ourselves and doing the thing. And we were talking about how like we're so risk averse and we tend to get more risk averse as we get older. And I turned 50 in December of last year, and I want to take more risks than I've ever taken before, because once you get that breakthrough and things change for you. Like I started a business at 47 years old, man, in the middle of a fucking pandemic, right? Advertisers and marketers are pulling money out of the system. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to start a business and we're going to sell advertising. But we get success, and then you start building on that success. And you're also going to have failures when you risk, when you take a risk and you bet on yourself. But that failure isn't terminal. This is one of the mottos we have at our company is failure isn't terminal. It's a building block to success. So learn from it. So if you're just getting started in endurance sports, go for that first walk and see what it's like. Go for that first run and aim for that 5K. If you've been running half marathons and you want to run a marathon, but you're worried that you can't do it, go for it. See what happens. Like, it's okay to miss the mark. It's okay to miss the goal. And here's why I say that. The internet never turns off. And so if you put it out there that I'm going to go run a half marathon and I want to finish it 2.5 hours, whatever that number is, and you run it in 2:45, nobody fucking cares. Literally nobody cares, because you might post that you missed your goal and you're going to get some condolences from people. And the very next day, somebody else is going to miss a goal or somebody else is going to reach a goal. And the world just keeps moving forward. But we put all of this pressure on ourselves to be like, oh, I have to be perfect. Man, wear your warts, be proud of them. When I get in conversations with people, I tell them, look, here's my story. Twice divorced, eating disorder, alcohol abuse, moved from New York to Dallas to Phoenix to Seattle, now LA. I lost my dad when I was 23. I lost my mother just a couple of months ago. Like, I've been through some shit, right? But I'm still here. I still show up. I still do the thing. I still train. I still race, still run a business, still teach marketing at the college level. Like, we all got stories. We all have some traumas. Don't limit yourself. Like, do not limit yourself, especially for some stranger on the internet somewhere who might tell you that you're not good enough.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the best I ever did was, I just said yes to things. I went after goals that day. I was shit, and that's where growth comes from too. From and why? Featured a pineapple on pizza.
So here's the thing. I don't hate pineapple. Yes, let's be clear here. I don't hate pineapple. I actually love pineapple. Give me some chunks and I'm thrilled. I love pineapple. But pineapple on pizza is just not going to do it for me. If you want to eat it, knock your socks off. Enjoy it. I'll sit there next to you watching you eat it. I just won't do it myself. The combination of acid on acid just does not appeal to me. It's just never going to happen. Sorry, folks, but by all means, enjoy it. Knock yourself out.
Not that I get joy out of it. How firm stand ground against it. Like, what I love is all the posts that I've.
Oh, I just lost Joe. Am I now hosting the show on my own? This ought to be interesting. So we were talking about pineapple on pizza. So here's my question for those of you that are watching us live and then who might listen to this on our podcast later on. Do you go to the pizza joint with this idea that you're going to actually order pineapple on pizza? Or do you think to yourself, like, it's the fifth best option for yourself? Hey, I'd like to get pepperoni. I'd like to get sausage. I'd like plain slice. I'd like veggie. I'd like mushroom. Like, where do you go with this idea that you're going to get pineapple on pizza? Hey, Joe, I was just filling in the airspace and asking the audience a question.
Hey, how's it my internet.
No worries. You could type the questions in if you're still
Are we
there.
still there?
Yep, you're good.
I was going to say, I love kind of the conversation that's still Apple on people, all the little thread forums that are started or people tagging you and
it's amazing, man.
Enjoy it.
It's amazing. We get pictures sent to us via DM on Instagram, Facebook sometimes as well, private comments of people eating pizza, people eating pineapple on pizza. Like it's hilarious how much of a life on it of its own this has taken on, and it's fantastic. You know, obviously, I love to talk about food. I host Food Fight Friday at the Aid Station with Adam Lee, and then I do some solo videos because I just love talking about food. And honestly, there's only one food that I just don't like at all, and that would be liver. But just about anything else, like give it a shot, give it a try, and if it's not for you, cool. Nope. Yeah, you just gave the shivers. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, so I'm from the Midwest, obviously, and like chicken livers and gizzard a thing here. Like, if you go to like any stand like gray food restaurant, that'll be like a thing on the menu. Not my thing for sure. So if anybody that follows you long enough knows that you are a coffee fanatic, tell me about your favorite coffee. Pour overs, French press, drip coffee. Let's dig into that. Let's dig into some coffee stuff.
Yeah, let's dig into some coffee stuff. Hey, Cafe Bustelo, if you're listening, we're looking for a sponsor for caffeinated coaching. Endurance athletes love their coffee, so let's do it. Man, it all depends on how I feel in the morning, honestly. Some mornings it's an espresso, some mornings it's a latte, some mornings it's pour over. We don't own a drip coffee maker, so that's out for us. But that doesn't mean that if I go to a diner that I wouldn't get, drip coffee, because you can get some good coffee at a diner too. But I think my favorite coffee is an Americano, like straight black Americano, strong, just that's it, right? I could sit at a coffee shop with my feet up and watch the world go by drinking an Americano. I think that would be the answer to this, what seems to be a ridiculously hard question to answer. It's like picking your favorite kid, right? Like it's hard.
Man, so we also have that in common. That is my favorite Americano, hands down. Hot? Any preference there?
Always hot. Like
always hot.
I get, yeah. Like I have iced coffees every now and again. I will have a blended mocha every now and again, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be hot. And it's interesting, when I moved to Phoenix, I didn't realize that I had to order my coffee hot because it's always 105 degrees there. Just about every coffee is assumed to be iced coffee. And so the first time I ordered coffee and they handed me iced, I was like, no, I want hot. You can have this back. And the barista looked at me kind of quizzically, like, you really want hot coffee in this 105-degree temperatures? Like, yeah, hot coffee. For me, like, there's almost nothing better than after a hard swim, bike, or run to get a hot cup of coffee, a Mexi-Coke, and a sparkling water. Like those 3 after any one of those hard types of workouts is ideal.
Oh yeah. It depends on the day. Butter iced. And then yeah, I agree with you. Americano is one of my favorites, but and I have to be willing to. I have to be in the mood to be willing to wait for a pour of it. Cool. Yeah. So favorite coffee? Do you like grind?
I love coffee. No, I love Cafe Bustelo. Like I talked with Robert Rodriguez on Tuesday, like as a Puerto Rican kid, Cafe Bustelo was always in the house. But it was a 50-50 chance on whether or not there was actually going to be coffee in that can or nails and screws that your dad had been collecting for, years in that can. Like that can held a lot of stuff besides coffee. So I would start there as my favorite. Then um, Zavazza and Illy, Italian brands, rank right up there at the top as well, in terms of coffee brands that I would gravitate to in terms of, let's go out. And then outside of that, man, honestly, whatever's on the shelf for sale always makes me happy, because it's not to say that all coffee is the same, but once you start moving down in that level, that price point, they're kind of all going to be very, very similar.
That's a cafe and Castello cans in my shop full of screws. Um, all right, so if you had one food type, like one kind of cuisine that you had to eat for that would be
That's,
like Mexican
man,
cuisine or
you
like
got all the
Asian
hard ones.
cuisine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So my
wanted to dig
first
out some good
reaction
food
was
questions.
Italian. Yeah, my first reaction was Italian, but then I think Ethiopian. Like I love Ethiopian food. Injera, lentils, potatoes with spinach. And you get to eat with your hands, which I don't know, it just makes the experience even better, makes me feel more connected to the food. So, which by the way, Ethiopia and Italy are intertwined thanks to the world wars that we have had. And so, if you go to an Ethiopian restaurant, there's a good chance you could also order a chicken parm because of their connection, thanks to occupations during wars and stuff like that. But man, that's a really, I think I would go with Italian, because I can get pizza under the Italian umbrella, and then amongst other things. But I would say Italian cuisine for the rest of my life. I think I could survive on that. Good
Yeah,
question though.
yeah. Okay, so because I know you hold a high opinion of New York pizza, New York style pizza or slice, I guess. But what is your
There you
ideal
go.
pizza? Yeah, I had to say
Plain
it right.
slice,
Sorry.
plain slice out of New York, man. There's a lot of other stuff out there. Why mess with perfection, right? Like why screw around with perfection? You got dough that should have a good crisp crust, chewy on the edges. Then you've got sauce that isn't too acidic, isn't too sweet, and then you got cheese. Like, what? You could put all the other stuff on there. Don't get me wrong. I love mushroom pizza, spinach pizza, vegetable pizza. When I was eating meat, pepperoni, so it's all good. It's all good. But like it just is never going to beat a plain cheese slice out of New York. In New York, they have what I call pizza closets, which is literally like the oven and a cooler with sodas in there. You go in there and you get yourself 2 cheese slices and a Coke for like $3.50, and it's heaven. Like you can't beat it.
Hey, that sounds amazing. I haven't been to New York since I was a kid, so and I need to travel more. So
We all do, dude. We all need to
yeah,
travel more. Get this story. So Om Gandhi goes to New York, and of all the places in all of the 5 boroughs that he could have gone to, he winds up going to Pizza Palace in Inwood, New York, which is a joint that I went to when I was a kid 40 years ago. Exactly. Like, are you fucking kidding me? What are the chances? And sure enough, he was like, dude, there's nothing like this. I was like, now you know.
man, keep that in mind because I need to, like I said, I need to travel more. I want to travel more. Um, so keep it in mind. So I was born in Chicago, so I feel like I owe it to Chicago to like Chicago style pizza. But I'll be completely honest with you, I don't really like Chicago style pizza. So I don't know. I guess I don't have like a place to like settle my roots for pizza, really. But in
Have you
Indiana, we don't have much here, so not pizza
have you
wise.
tried Detroit style pizza?
What's that?
Have you
Detroit?
tried Detroit style pizza?
Yeah, yeah. It was pretty good, but I like a thin, like I like almost like a thin, like salty crust, like a crispy crust, or like we have like a Pizza King where it's like square pizza
Yeah.
slices or pizza, not slices. I kind of like those too, but
Yeah, Detroit style
um,
is good in the sense that you get, it's a square pizza, but it's got the cheese melted on the outside as well. So if I'm ranking pizzas, New York is number one without a doubt. And then I would eat Detroit, and then I would just go hungry if somebody offered me Chicago style.
I agree, man. I hate to say that because it's like it was like my native soil, but I do like there is a good Greek pizza place a couple hours from here. I went to college down south and around Evansville, Louisville, Kentucky area, and there's a Greek style place called Bilbo's Pizza. So I actually shout out to Bilbo's. That might be one of my favorites. It's like all their toppings are on the sauce, and then just like a huge layer of cheese. Like you don't really see the toppings. Of course, that was before I went like plant. So I don't know how that would work now, or the fact that like most dairy products will kill me if I eat them now. But so I will say that was a
That's
good style pizza.
like Gary and I are like oil and water, but I will not give up pizza. I will tolerate what comes the next day. I know what's going to happen. I will tolerate it, but I'm never going to give up pizza. No chance.
I love your dedication to it. That's for sure. Um, all right, so I already know the answer to this question, but I have to ask it because I want you to tell the story on my platform. And I always like to ask people their, like I said, I know the answer, but I want you to tell the story. I want you to share that
So
with everybody.
I literally have two songs on my phone, and they're both by the Pet Shop Boys. At one time, I owned a Honda Element, and the fuse must have blown on the radio or whatever, and so I had no radio for like a year plus. And I would just drive around, and I would talk to Lori, and we would have conversation with no music whatsoever. But the strange thing is, dude, right? Like for top 40 songs, I can sing the hooks. I don't know where I hear them. I don't know what happens. Maybe somewhere on Twitter or TikTok or something, I hear a song and I get the hooks. But like music is important. Don't get me wrong. Like Jackson 5 is one of my favorite bands. I'm gonna date myself from back in the day. Like I said, I'm 50 years old, so I listened to hip hop like Run DMC and Rob Bass and all those guys way back when. And so I know that those songs and that music. But like I listened to you and Oman, What's in Your Earbuds, and I was like, what in the hell are all these things? Like, who are these people? What are they talking about? What are these songs? So if it's not top 40, Billboard top 40 that you hear on the radio, I probably don't know it. And when I'm out riding my bike and running, no music, just me and nature.
Love that. I think like keeping up with it's like my little way of like grasping onto some sort of like semblance of youth because I feel like a dinosaur anymore. But uh, okay,
Like you and Ohm love music, and then Adam Ture loves music as well. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about human beings is we can all have varying levels of love for different things. And we don't all have to like the same thing, and we all don't have to be into the same thing. But I think it's damn cool that you and Ohm could talk about music for hours on end. Like that's cool, man. And then you're like willing to be open to somebody else's suggestion. Hey, go listen to ABC band. And you're like, yeah, I'll go listen to them while I run. That's awesome. Like, I think that's really cool. And it's one of the things that I love about having this business is we get to meet so many different people with so many different personalities, with so many different interests. And you just never know what you might like, what you might find that you thought you disliked and you wind up liking. And So good on you guys for loving music and talking about it and bringing it to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, because I think it's damn cool.
Yeah. It's like music and kind of knowing what someone's reading or like what kind of literature, like what they're into, is almost like a window and like getting to know them. So actually, that brings me to my next question: do you read, like, you read, like, if you read constantly, what are you reading?
Yeah. So one thing that I read often is a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And I listen to his TED Talk often, once a quarter. It's a TED Talk about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's a great reminder about talking about your why in business. And then right now I'm reading a book called The Soviet Sisters by Annika Scott. Fiction, World War II. I find World War II stories to be fascinating. The things that, this entire planet went through back in the 1940s, late 30s, early 40s. I find it fascinating. The conversations are fascinating. The things that changed history in our life. I watched a documentary, a couple of docu-series about fashion in France and how that got changed because of World War II and the people that came out of it, not Christian Dior, Ralph Lauren, and just all these other, like what we see as behemoth companies today and what they were doing back in World War II. And it was fascinating. And so I just so that's what I'm reading right now, The Soviet Sisters. But Simon Sinek's Start With Why is usually on my table next to me, and every quarter I go and I search YouTube for his TED Talk, and it's a great reminder about running this business that we are, and people will buy why we do the things, not what we do.
Awesome, cool. I'm gonna take note of that. That's always like a kind of a, it's kind of like its own love language, right? Like, right, to like share someone like what you're reading or like what you're listening to. That's awesome. I also love World War II stuff too. I bet I've watched The Band of Brothers in the Pacific like a dozen times since it's been out. But I think that's like
There's a good
right.
chance we're separated at birth, huh?
Yeah. I think that's like, my wife jokes, it's like a 40-year-old thing. It's like you're supposed to take up smoking meats or World War II documentaries in your 40s or something. But all right. One more food question. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen at an aid station, food wise?
I will tell you this story while I think of the answer to that question. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen was at Ironman, Texas. It was the third Ironman I had done. Second time I was doing Ironman, Texas. And you run through this park and you run into this special needs area in this park. You just do this loop through there, and all the porta potties are set up, and there's all these bags for people's special needs. And I saw a dude take a Whopper out of his special needs bag and just devour it. And I got a little grossed out, I'll be honest with you. Not because it was a Whopper, but because it was like 105 degrees, 108 degrees that day. And this Whopper has been sitting out in the sun with mayonnaise and ketchup. And like, I was just thinking to myself, my goodness, if this guy makes it through this entire run without shitting his pants, that's a win. I don't care how long it takes him to finish. But that was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen being consumed in the middle of a race, for sure. As far as the weirdest thing I've ever seen at an aid station, man, I don't know that they serve weird things at an aid station. And like, when I say weird, like if I were to see escargot being served at an aid station, I think that's weird, right? Like, why is that here at an aid station? It's typical standard food that you would see: burgers, dogs, rice, lots of rice, quesadillas. Nothing that made me like think, why is that here? Oh no! The thing that Ohm was eating at Tahoe 200, by far the weirdest thing I've ever seen at an aid. It was this like pita bread with this canned tomato sauce that like they just poured it out on top. Then he had olives put on there and vegan cheese. And you and I both know that vegan cheese does not melt, right?
No.
It just becomes like this plastic slab. And this dude is eating this shit at this aid station, and they didn't cut it. So he's like dirty hands, and he's trying to peel it, and there's tomato crap everywhere. That, I would say, is the weirdest thing I've seen served at an aid station. Zero
Nice, nice. Oh man. Yeah, I just had vegan cheese on my nachos. What's that? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Did you and Ohm talk about the first time he and I met in person when you talked to him yesterday?
I don't think we did.
Oh man. So this is a great story. So
Yeah.
you know how Ohm and I met. You know, he submitted his story because he had seen Hector Rodriguez share his story on our platform at the time. We're just getting started. And so he and I kept in touch, and he had asked me for help with his writing business. And I was like, okay, well, what do you want to write? What do you want to write about? For what do you want to write? You know, your own website, clientele. We got into this conversation, and he mentions that he does social media. And so I hire Ohm to be the Run Try Bike social media manager. And I meet him at Coldwater Rumble. And he goes to shake my hand. And I don't know how much he loves this story or how much he hates the story, but it was like the coldest, deadest fish handshake I've ever gotten in my life. And my immediate thought was, this is the guy I hired? I'm in big trouble, man. Like, it was so bad. And we laugh about it nowadays. But it was one of the worst handshakes I've ever gotten, dude. Like, just bad, bad, bad. But the thing about that story is the person he is today compared to the person he was then is night and day. And I'm so proud of him for how much confidence he has gained through being a co-owner in this business, through running the company with me, through running the social media, through talking to potential clients and existing clients, and holding his own, right? He comes from an engineering background. Now he's in sales and marketing and the co-owner of a business. And to remember who he was, or how he was, not who he was, but how he was back then, and what he's like today, it's night and day. And that's why I love to share that story, because we can all evolve, we can all grow, but we also have to take chances and risks and bet on ourselves, which is exactly what he did. And look at, you know, where he's at today compared to where he was a couple of years ago. And I get excited about where he's going to be in a few years from now as our platform and our company continues to grow. It's super cool.
Yeah, shout out Ohm. I love watching everything he's doing. He inspires me. You inspire me too. But yeah, it's just so cool getting to know the last. It seems like a time, not because it's not an awesome time. It's just like, oh, I guess it's only been since January. But yeah, that's. I did hear that story recently, but he didn't share it on my platform. So I'm so glad you told that. So I don't want to take up a whole bunch of your time, and we're running out of time. So if you had a little bit of
I own the
advice-
company.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Totally forgot. Can we please? This is something that I want to know for myself, obviously. But if there was like one thing, like one piece of advice that you had to share with somebody, what would that be? I know that's a big question, but yeah, if you could share that with us, do it.
Do it. Like, we talked about risk a number of times in this conversation already, but do it, man. And I want to preface it this way too, right? When I tell people to take a risk, I'm not telling you to take every single penny you have and go gamble it on something that's got less than a 50% chance of succeeding. I'm not telling you to, you know, risk your life and things like that, but do the thing, take the chance, take the risk, see what is out there for yourself. So here, I'll tell you this, like, I've always been a confident person. And I've gone to restaurants on my own and eaten dinner by myself. I've gone to the movies on my own and watched movies by myself. Other people wouldn't do that because they're afraid of the perception of some stranger who's at the restaurant or the movie theater, right? Who cares? Like, you're probably never going to see that person again. So go do the thing. If you want to run 100 miles, go for it, right? Put in the training, put in the work, do the research on the course, but do it. Go and do it. I can't emphasize that enough. If you've got a post sitting in your drafts today, press publish. It's never going to be perfect. If you want to write a book, start writing page 1. It's not going to be perfect on page 1. Go do the thing, because here's the real truth of it all. You can't get to perfection unless you start somewhere. Nobody starts with 100%, right? I bet you if I went and read our first article that we put on our website or in our magazine, I would probably cringe and be like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. I go and look back at our first fireside chat that we had with Kevin from Better Butter and his wife, and it was terrible. It was awful. But we've gotten better to the point where we've now done 115 episodes, right? So do the thing, give it a shot. In 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, you won't even remember how bad it was when you first got started. You'll just know that you've constantly gotten better. So just do the thing, man. Like, you hate to steal from Nike, right? But just do it. They hit the nail on the head when they came up with that slogan. Just do it.
Yeah, that got me fired up. I love that.
Let me add this.
Hey, go ahead.
When you hear stories about people telling stories about their loved ones on their deathbed, the story is typically about the regret of the thing that they didn't do. Almost never do you ever hear a story about the regret of the thing that they did do, right? It's always, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have written that book. I wish I would have called my cousin more. I wish I would have tried this food. I wish I would have. I wish I would have. I wish I would have. Why not eliminate that conversation today? Instead of wishing that you would have, go do it. Go do it. If you can't get to Italy, go to Little Italy in a city near you. It may not be the exact same thing, but it'll be an experience, and maybe you haven't done that. If you want to go to Japan and you can't afford it, go find the Japanese neighborhood in a city near you, right? If you want to go to a city, go. Get out there and go visit the city and walk around and take in the sights and the sounds. If you want to ride across Iowa, go do it. Like, go and do it and have fun doing it. Take the pictures, shoot the videos, share it, do it. Because the only person you have to satisfy when it's all said and done is yourself.
God, I love that. That was good. That's good stuff, Jason. Yeah, I certainly agree. Man.
Look at you. Take you, for example, man. Like, we reach out to you and we're like, hey, you want to host a podcast? You're like, I've never done it before. Sure, why the fuck not? Right?
Yeah.
And I remember your first episode. We got off the show, and you're like, that was horrible. That was terrible. It sucked here. It sucked there. I wish I would have done this. I would have done that. You're on episode 7 now, right? You've been doing this for 3 months, and you've gotten increasingly better every single time. But if you didn't say yes to that invitation, you'd still be stuck in the wondering world. What if I would have said yes to those guys? What if I would have said yes to hosting my own podcast? What could have come from it?
Yeah, I get it. Like, died on the vine with her, would have, said yes to the first thing, but, and man, like what it teaches you about, it's pretty incredible too.
And it's so evident to those of us. It's so evident to people who are outside of your world. I see you more confident. I see you posting more with confidence. I see you sharing more with confidence, right? Like, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I still have ways to go. I still need to progress, and I'm still closer to the beginning than I am to getting better. But trust me, from the people on the outside that are looking at you, like, you can tell the confidence that's coming across with you in terms of what you're posting and how often you're posting about it and the things that you're doing. And going to do 100K, and then talking about doing and registering for your first 100-miler, and now talking about doing the Oregon 200 next year, right? Like, that's awesome, man. Like, I get to watch that. I've gotten to see that happen. And it's all because you were like, fuck it. Yeah, I'll host my own podcast.
Okay, sir, it's almost wild to a year ago, I never would have thought that I would ever be. I would even said yes to something like this, or said yes to sign for I thought a half marathon was out of my grasp at one point. I thought talking in public was out of my whole the past years. It's been wild. And like I just took a chance. Like there was embarrassment and like stumble. But man, what you learn from all that stuff is fantastic.
Dude, I typed my name incorrectly on the Instagram chat for this podcast show. I typed it JASN. Like, we're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. So what?
Yeah, I bet half the time, like we talked about in the green room, nobody else notices anyways. They're here for something totally different than picking you apart. At least the people that care, that are actually there for you. But
I want to add this. You just reminded me of something. So I said my one piece of advice would be to just do it. I will add this to my one piece of advice so it doesn't sound like two. While you're doing it, have fun. Like, laugh. Like, expose yourself, share your vulnerabilities, and laugh, right? None of us is coming out of this alive. So have fun while you're doing it. Laugh your ass off constantly. Like, for me, if I'm not laughing every day, it's a bad day. And so, like, I'm out here laughing. Like, oftentimes I laugh at how crazy it is to think that we launched this business, in January of 2021, and here we are today with 7 shows on a podcast network, a magazine, a newsletter. We've got well over 15,000 people following us on a monthly basis with the accumulation of all these platforms. Like, that's funny shit, because I was just some schmuck sitting in the office in the middle of Irving, Texas. It was like, let's try it, right? Like, what the hell?
Oh man, yeah, that's awesome. Oh man, yeah, I agree. And I'll heed that for sure. I need to learn to maybe lighten up, and I take things too serious. I'll agree with you. Wow.
Dude, I'm an endurance athlete, and I wear cycling shorts and bibs that essentially have adult diapers in them. How seriously can I take myself?
I get you made me think about me wearing 5-inch inseam running shorts. I'm just like, man, this is a lot of thigh, but I mean, at least I'm gonna be comfortable. And I basically laugh at myself the whole.
That's too long. 3-inch shorts, man. 5 inches is a dress.
I'm just like, this is so much thigh to share with right now.
Who gives a shit? Have fun. Go shorter.
Yeah.
Your shorts are too long. Go shorter.
Oh man, time to ditch dog shorts.
That's it. Somebody posted the other day. I saw them post the other day. They're like, I wear 7-inch shorts, and I just thought to myself, that's a pair of jeans. Like, that's 7-inch shorts, man. That would be down to my ankles.
Capris.
Exactly. We should start a movement, the Capri runners. I bet you we could get that going.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I bet we could. That'd be awesome. Oh, man. Well, all right, Jason. I guess I just want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. And it's been an honor having you here. It's been an honor being a part of this. Watching Run Try Bike grow has been awesome. Watching the EAPN come up and all these great shows. Man, I got a cool seat. I get to kind of see this from the front row, and it's been cool, man. Like it's been surreal. And thank you so much for your time tonight. And I just want to add to everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. And if you're a friend of the pod and you're digging it, please subscribe, share, review about us. The Day Athlete Podcast Network is growing. There's 7 great shows on there. 7. That's wild. And every week there's more and more amazing content coming out there. And we couldn't do without you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you next time beyond the finish line. And
Have a great night, Joe. Thanks for having me on, brother. Talk to you soon.